Hey there. Want to meal prep kale more often? Kale is super healthy, it's nutrient dense, and it doesn't spoil or wilt quickly. It's perfect for meal prep. Make one or more batches of kale at the beginning of the week, and you're set for dark leafy greens. In this video, I'll show you how to clean, cut, prep, and store kale as part of cooking smarter for the week. There are many kinds of kale. I'll show you a few. This is dinosaur or lacinato kale. Here's purple kale with the darker leaves. But we're going to stick with curly kale, the most common type of kale sold in stores. Step one for kale prep is cleaning it. I find it's easiest to clean the whole leaves rather than the chopped leaves. I clean them quickly, one by one, over the sink. If you're steaming the kale, you don't need to dry it, but for raw kale salads or roasted kale chips, it's important to dry it. I use a clean kitchen towel. Or you can use a salad spinner. Just put the wet leaves into the spinner, put the top on, and then pump the leaves dry. Now it's time to cut your kale. The quickest way to detach the leaf from the thick stem is to strip it with your hands. It's efficient and it's really kind of fun. If you're roasting the kale, you want to leave the pieces fairly large like this. You can simply tear them with your hands. You don't really need to use a knife. If you're steaming the kale, you can either slice or chop. So if you want to slice, you can stack several leaves at a time and then slice them into ribbons like this with a chef's knife. Or you can chop the leaves. Again, I stack several of them together, slice them into ribbons, then I turn them 90 degrees and chop them in the opposite way. By the way, you can eat those thick stems. I like to finely slice them for steaming or for using them raw in smoothies or added to soups. Now I'll cover 4 different ways you can prep your cleaned and cut kale. The first way is to massage raw kale. If you're making a salad and you don't want overly chewy kale, you can massage the pieces to soften them and start the breakdown process. You don't need oil for this. Just massage the kale for 2 to 3 minutes. The second prep method is to steam the kale on the stove. The first step is to add 1 to 1.5 cups water to the pot and then turn on the stove so that starts to boil. Then put your steamer basket in and then cover that so it comes to a rolling boil. Once it's boiling, add your kale to the basket. And then once that's all added, cover it again, bring it to a simmer, and then you'll steam for 7 to 10 minutes. And then once it's done, you'll see it's darker and it's reduced and it is ready to eat or ready to add to a recipe or ready to store in a container. The third way to prep kale is steam kale in the Instant Pot. Starts the same way as on the stove. The first step is to add 1 to 1.5 cups water to the Instant Pot, then add a steamer basket of some sort, and then you add the kale into the basket, making sure it's not touching the water. And then you close the lid. You make sure the knob is pointed to sealing or seal. And then you press steam and 1 minute. And then immediately after that 1 minute is done, You release the steam and open the lid. The fourth way to prep your kale is to roast it. In this case, I'm going to use a cheesy coating. So you take those large pieces of kale that we tore, and then you add a nacho cheesy coating in this instance, and I have put the recipe in the description below. And then after you have the coating on, you really need to use your hands and distribute that coating. It takes a couple minutes, but you really want it to be well distributed. You want each piece to have an even amount of coating on it. And then you're going to spread these out onto a parchment lined sheet pan. And you want to make sure it's a single layer. You want to put the kale pieces close to each other, but don't have them overlapping much at all. Maybe the sides can touch, but that should be it because they won't get crisp. Then you put these into a 250-degree oven for 25 minutes. And by that time, they should be nice and crispy. And then they are ready to come out. And you look at that, nice and crispy. So what are the best ways to store your prepped kale? You can store steamed kale in plastic bags or glass or plastic containers. I like to store it in individual servings. I especially like these rectangular glass containers with the snap-on lids. I like that I can stack them. You can also freeze steamed kale in zip bags. They're good for a couple of months this way. Here are a few delicious ways to use kale once you've prepped it. You can make a yummy kale Caesar salad with massaged raw kale. I've put a link to my killer Caesar dressing and my oil-free croutons, as well as my vegan Parmesan in the description. This kale salad lasts several days in the refrigerator, and it is certainly delicious. You can stir steamed kale into almost any kind of soup for an easy serving of dark leafy greens. You can go from the freezer bag right into the soup pot, and in a minute or so, it will be ready. You can also use raw or steamed kale in smoothies, like this blueberry smoothie. You can again go from the frozen steamed kale, or you can use raw, whichever kind of kale makes sense for you. These are just a few ways to use prepped kale. If you're looking for a plant-based meal prep system that's simple, flexible, and delicious, check out my ebook, Cook Once, Eat Better. You prep a plant-based protein, grain, vegetable, and a sauce once a week, and you've then got the components for delicious mix and match meals during the week. Check out the description for more information and a link to purchase or get a free excerpt. Thank you.